Today we're going to go on a little tour of this pond here, which is the first pond we made. It was started more than a decade ago and it was finally dug out by the digger about 6 years ago. But everything here is done by hand apart from this deep bit here, and that's the only bit that's not done by hand. All this narrow bit here is all done by hand, and the island's all cut by hand, all the back bits all landscaped by hand, either with wheelbarrows or with buckets depending on the weather. And the first thing I'm going to need is some fish food. Right. Now the fish are coming up to breeding season soon, sort of May's usually their breeding season, but everything's early. And they have been jumping out of the water quite a bit because they do that in the breeding season. Just give them a minute. I put some up here for the little fish. They seem to like eating up there. But any minute now we should get some big mouths coming up. There's one just over there. The fish we have in here are all native fish and fish that are good at tolerating still water and cloudy water, because this is clay, so it's always cloudy, because clay's like microscopic particles. You see a big couple of fish over there. They've got about this size, some of them now, and they've been in for 6 years. Carp and rudd and tench, sticklebacks and all sorts of wild fish, bream, and they love it in here. They'll be feeding for a while now. They've got huge mouths like this on them, this bit at the back is like a big woodland island, and there's a channel going in there both sides around it, and this little patch here is just a little patch of grass, so it just goes up to here, and there's a bank there, and that's where the woods start. And then if I go this way, this little grassy patch continues as a path along here, with just a hedge here, and it comes out on an orchard round there, but we'll see that in a minute. So if you come with me, I shall take you around the pond. First herb we see on our way here is the ribwort plantain, and this is like, it grows in these clusters of those rosettes of leaves which are there all through the winter, and then at this time of the year they start throwing up these little flower stems, and then they have little whorls of stamens that come up around them. Now they say that these are supposed to taste like mushrooms and they're really nice to eat, but I tried one the other day and it's one of the most revolting things I've ever eaten. But apparently you can eat that bit before it starts flowering. So this is a very useful herb, and the leaf tea can be used for various things, but also a more common use for this one is that you squish the leaves and you can apply it to any kind of sting, insect stings, nettle stings or anything like that. So it's really stings, but it has loads more uses as well as that. Down this grassy path, this is like a continuation of the grassy area really, but it kind of connects to the orchard. And this is the deepest part sort of in here. And then just here you sort of come into the orchard. The most striking tree in the orchard is this Ribston pippin at the moment, because it's like really in full blossom. And hello. And if you smell apple blossom, it's supposed to protect you. So there's nice ones that are out here. Wow, it's just one of the nicest smells in nature, the apple blossoms. It's just gorgeous, and they're sort of nearly all out now, but they last quite a while. They smell just gorgeous. They're one of the nicest smells in nature, apple blossoms. And the orchard is going to go sort of down here, this bank here that we made, and this slope, because it was all kind of just a level slope really. So this is like a little hill which gets bigger progressively as it goes down. And on top of it is this bank here which has got a native hedge on it, and that's the start of the woods. And it acts like a watershed as well, so the top of this bank, if the rain falls this side, it goes through the orchard and into the pond over there, and if it falls this side, it comes down and into this pond. So it's like a watershed diverting the water where we want it to go. At the moment we have these lovely viburnums here, these wayfaring trees, which are quite a rare native species, and they also are one of the nicest smells there is in nature. So if I smell these, wow, and they're just as nice as any garden viburnum, of which there are many types, and it's Viburnum lantana, and they're quite easy to get hold of. Most garden centres have them, and yeah, one of our rarest native trees. So we put a lot of them in this hedge, also because they have silvery leaves. So we put a load of them in the hedge and white beams as well to give this native hedge a more silvery effect. Anyway, this is the way into the woods, and straight away over here we have a wayfaring tree, which is a kind of sorbus, and it's very unusual in the wild, and it's doing really well here. Like other sorbus trees, the wayfaring tree tends to do this big spurt of growth when the buds open now, and that's all it does, but the same leaves just sit there all year. And if it's a very hot summer, sometimes they do a little bit of extra growth, but nearly always the whole growth is in the first month after budding. This big oak tree dominates this part of the woods, and at the moment it's just budding and flowering, and you can see the male catkins hanging down there. And if you look into the middle, the female flowers are quite hard to spot, but basically these little white hairs are the female flowers, and then the little developing acorns would be down below them on little stems, of a few on each stem, but they're quite hard to spot. But you can just see these little hairs coming out there. So you have both sexes on the oak tree, but there's the male catkins and there's the female flowers there. And where the tree's hanging over the water, they're coming out sooner because it's warmer. This is the outflow pipe for the pond, and it's still full, so the water's, it's not rained for a week, but still the pond is full here. But when we first made the pond, because it's not made with a liner or anything, it took quite a few years for it to actually stay at the top. For the last sort of 3 or 4 years, it's always stayed at the top for at least 2 weeks without rain, and then it starts to gradually go down. But seldom goes down by more than a foot. And this comes under here and into this valley here, which was just a straight ditch like this, but we've landscaped it and bent it and wiggled it so that the water takes longer to journey from this pond to the next pond, and has more time, chance of sinking into the ground and replenishing the water table. This little path comes around the edge of the pond, and here it's just cut to be like 6-8 inches above the high water mark, so you just feel like you're right close to the water here. And growing here, we've got loads of wildflowers that grow here. Stitchwort's very good. It's these little white flowers that come throughout the spring. The herb can be squished and applied for any skin conditions like eczema or anything, and they're supposed to be good at helping mend broken bones and things like that. And then wood avens here, Geum urbanatum, that's a really nice plant, so many uses. There's a garden version of it as well, but this is the wild one, and it's very, very good for wounds. It's got really absorbent leaves, and you can eat it, and the root is aromatic and smells like cloves, so it just has loads of uses. And then of course primroses, they have masses of uses as well. Like here, they just seed themselves everywhere. See these little tiny primrose plants and all along here, and there were just a few we put in here when we built this. So they're going to be over soon, so make the most of them. But 2 flowers in a cup of in some hot water, put something over it for 10 minutes, and that's all you need for a primrose tea. But they're quite edible, and they're good for loads of different things. But they're good for coughs and colds, and they've got loads of other uses. But they're really nice just to eat or to have primrose tea, and they're just lovely primroses. Wild garlic is also very, very useful. You can eat the leaves, but when they start flowering, it's usually the flowers are nicer. You can just tell wild garlic because it has these big broad leaves like that with parallel veins going up. You can eat them, you can cook with them. At the moment they're still okay, but really as the flowers come out they're not so nice. They're nicer to cook with now. But the flowers can be eaten raw, or they could just be sprinkled on salads, or they can be cooked. And then when they finish, the seed pods can be used. And then throughout the year, the tiny little bulbs can be used, but it's nowhere near as big as the cultivated garlic bulbs. But when these finish, my cultivated garlic in the vegetable garden should be ready. This little bit in here is like a little shallow inlet, and when the pond's very low, this just becomes exposed, and it sort of gradually gets deeper as you come this way, and eventually comes to a very steep drop. This little area here is reserved for really rare plants, and this little plant here, which doesn't look like much at the moment, is a Bath asparagus, which is an ornithogalum, and it has when the leaves die back and then in May, a big long flowering stem that comes up and has these interesting green flowers. So that's, and they're edible, but I haven't eaten them because those are the only ones we've got. And then just here there were some snake's head fritillaries, and they finished a while ago now, and they're sort of spreading into a nice clump. So yeah, this is like a little rare plant area, and it's on this little headland here, so it's protected and it's not going to be a thoroughfare anyway, so it's a nice safe place. And all the plants we've got in here like it quite damp, so it's only just a few inches above the height of the high water here. And this is a really good place for wildlife as well, so sometimes you get frog spawn here and lots of little pond creatures and things in this nice shallow water. Coming around the corner here, I put this bank here, just sort of on the side of the pond here, where that shallow bit is, and that just seems to distance the pond from this bit of path. And it also, from that inlet, you can't see the path from it, so it just creates a little bit of a separation. And then at the end here, you've got a little gap where you can see into the pond, and then another little bank here which creates another little headland. This bit sort of sticks out there as a headland, but from in there this whole bit looks like a headland, but in actual fact the headland is just that bit. And then by having these big wiggling banks this side, path's forced to come round this way, and then it sort of opens out onto this wider bit here, which is one of the little bits we haven't finished yet. I'm not exactly sure how this is going to be. Maybe we need to do something else, but it's maybe stay like this, or I might lower it a bit. I'm not sure. It might be like this and have these edges made nicer, but it's just one of those little bits. I haven't quite fully decided what we want to do here yet. Here, this wild pear does very well in here, and there's quite a few elms in this little corner bit here, but just look over here a minute. See this weird bark here? And that's like an elm tree there, and it flowered earlier this year, and there's quite a few in here, and they seem to like it in here. But they're suckering trees, so in this corner here with the water there and everything, they're quite contained and they're not going to sort of sucker out of the woods into the orchard or anything. So I thought I'll put the elms here, but I thought I want somewhere where they're going to be safely contained. So this little bit here is behind the island, and it gives a nice little place to sit really here. You have the island there screening from the other side of the pond, so you feel like you're in a much bigger woods than you are, and then a bank here going up to a higher path at the top, and then this nice channel going along here. Somewhere here there's a little ridge that isn't cut down yet. Yeah, and it's kind of deep both sides of it. But if one day we'll pickaxe it away, but we haven't so far. It's like a deep there, and it's deep there. And then here's the island, and it's largely dominated by these wild raspberries. There are lots of trees and loads of different wildflowers here, and this bit gets way less disturbed than anything else because it's you can't really get to it, or you won't be able to pickaxe this away. And then the path continues on this way. There's more elm trees here, and loads of other different types of tree here. Spindle, loads of spindle, that does really well in the under canopy. And there's a little broom there. And here it sort of comes back out. Well, here you've got this another little bank here just distancing you from the channel here. And then when you come down here, you come out onto this headland. Technically here, you come out of the woods for a little bit, just for this headland. And this headland is the Glastonbury Thorn Headland. We have two Glastonbury thorns here, one here and one here. They flower twice a year, midsummer and midwinter. They're just finishing flowering now. They kind of look like hawthorns, but they're not. And then you come around here and you come back into the woods again. So that little headland is just for Glastonbury thorns, and then we carry on this way. Just here we have masses of wild strawberries, and they're easy to plant because they come in these little runners, and each little runner grows into a little plant. So there's one of last year's runners that's rooted in, and you can see there's little flowers and little strawberries. They're just like strawberries in miniature really. But one surprising thing about them is that a young leaf, like this one, here, they're tasty. They actually taste really nice. But you can make them into leaf tea, and they're very good for blood and digestive problems, things like that. And they have a very long season where they produce strawberries. You can just see the little strawberry forming there, and they keep on going for ages and ages. Another really good little woodland herb which takes really easily from little rooted bits is the betony, which has leaves like this. And then these flowering stems, which flowers last year, it has little kind of long stems of like pinky flowers usually. Each clump's a slightly different colour. But if you just reach down into the plant, there's loads of different bits growing, and you could just sort of pull one out. I won't do it today, but you can just pull one out with a bit of root and then just stick it in, and that's how we got these all to grow. And they transplant really easily. Now the leaves are edible. They have loads of medicinal uses. What do they do? They're good for kidneys and liver and loads of different things. So you can eat them, and they're not as nice as the strawberries, but they're okay. They're nicer mixed with other things. But they're quite edible, and they're one of those wildflowers that puts on a really big display in the summer, and they keep going for ages and ages, and pretty soon they'll be sending their flowering stems up. In fact, now I'm going to plant one as well. I'm going to get one and show you. Let's see. It's reached right down under the soil here, and ooh, and just pull up one little bit, like that, and there's a little bit of roots just stuck in the ground somewhere else, will just grow. Just make a little hole, and then just stick it in, and that will grow. This is very tough. As long as it's got a little bit of root, that will grow. And it's got a little stem coming up to a flower there, so I'm just going to take that off so it's not wasting energy. And it's got the leaves there, and that should grow there. I should be happy, because that's exactly what we did with these ones. Anyway, this bit here is higher, and this is so that the path gets diverted around here to make the path longer and more bendy. And if you look just here, you've got the pond and a very steep bit, so you can't go that way. So you're forced to go on this long wiggly bend around here. And here we've got loads and loads of prickly pears here, and field maples, all different types of shrub trees here. And there's like a big oak up there, and there's some alders and a lime and some other big trees, but we've got mostly shrub trees to create this really prickly, impenetrable, instant canopy. So the path sort of comes around here, and then you've got this little bit here which you have little access to the water here, because it's all very steep sided this end of the pond, and this little bit just gives you a little bit where you can see the pond. But this needs some hardcore or something here, because it gets very boggy here, but it does harden up later in the year. But it's been so wet in the spring, it's like quicksand here at the moment. And then up here, some steps. Here there's some steps, but at the moment they're not complete. They're just cut clay steps, but they will have a stone front on each of them, which will be at some point. But the steps get kind of done one by one. There's a few that are done and loads that are like this waiting to be done. It's just finding the right stones to be there. So one big stone going in and so on all the way up here, and that will be those steps coming up here onto this higher level up here. This is like our little high path here from which you get a nice view down at the very top of the pond, and it's quite high up here, and this big oak tree up here dominates it again, which is one of the original ones on the hedge. Also like under canopy trees like this field maple, and over here a lovely big clump of greater Speedwell, which are these really nice blue flowers here. Speedwell is in the Veronica family. There are loads of different types of them, and this is greater Speedwell. As the name might suggest, Speedwell, it makes you well quickly, and the herb tea can cure loads of infectious things and be very good for you, and it is edible. You can just eat it, but it tastes revolting and I wouldn't advise it. I tried some the other day, but it cures loads of things. Speedwell makes you well quickly. And then just here, where is it? I saw it just now. Oh, here we are, Herb Robert, this one here. Geranium robertum, with these little flowers like that, all edible, taste revolting. The flower tastes nice, but the leaves taste revolting, and you can decorate salads with them. But if you get one leaf and you squash it, it smells really strong. It's like a geranium, and all geraniums really have a scent to them, and that's very good for antiseptic if you cut yourself or something. So it's very useful as well. This is another little bit that will hopefully one day be a set of steps. And then here you have an option of coming out of the woods here, or you could continue on this path which goes around the pond, which connects to these unfinished steps as well, which comes down to the little footpath that goes around the other side of the pond. All the drainage from the main path and everywhere comes down here as well to catch as much rainwater for the pond as possible. Now this little bit isn't quite finished, it's one of those little bits that's not finished, but it's being gradually cut out behind. It's just this little bit, I can't quite work out exactly how I want it to go. But the path comes around the side here, and then you've got these big steep bits that go up, and from the other side it just looks like a hedge and a bank, but from this side it's like a deep valley which all feeds into the pond. And this is like the top valley, which is really steep, like a little gorgy end to the pond, and then everything else is kind of less steep, but this is the really high steep bit of the pond, with this narrow channel getting progressively deeper as it goes down around here, and the path just comes round here, and then you've got another big bank here, so you can't take a shortcut through there, so you have to wiggle around, and it makes the journey again much longer. And then here you've got another great big bank bit here, so you can't go that way, so you're forced to come this way. And it comes around here, and then you're sort of back at the grassy bit again here. So here the woods ends, and here you are back at the grassy bit where the bench is. So that's a tour of the top pond. Mostly finished, little bits that aren't finished, and it's establishing nicely. See that corner over there, the woods that we went through, that's the most established corner. That's the bit that was planted first, and the island there. And this bit's mostly newer, especially that side there. So all the tree planting is finished in here, but just a little bit of landscaping, a few steps and bits like that. So hope you liked this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. And if you press the little me, which is somewhere down there, you can see all my other videos. And I shall see you next time.